A whole long time ago, George Lockwood and I served on the committee to pick a new bishop, and we were on the committee that resulted in the election of Bishop Mary. And one of the first things she did at clergy conference was that she called in some of the priests and clergy that had been mentors to her on her way up. And she had them put on a little seminar in Best Practices 101. I don't remember, did you remember that, Marcia? And one of her mentors got up there and he said, "I think you should begin every sermon with a joke and preferably a really bad one." When she said that, I jumped out of my seat and I went, "Hallelujah, Jesus!" She glared at me. This is the worst joke I know. It seems that there was in celebration of the end of the pandemic, they decided to have an exhibition of Impressionist painters. And so they contacted museums all over the world to loan their Impressionist paintings. And this was going to be at the Louvre in France. And needless to say that these paintings were tremendously valuable, and so they had all the latest alarm systems. They had sound detectors, and they had motion detectors, and they had laser beams all through the place. And they were firmly convinced that no one could possibly bypass all these alarm systems. Much to their chagrin, on Monday morning when they turned on the lights, they found out that somebody had in fact bypassed the alarm systems and had stolen some very valuable paintings. Now, thankfully, his vehicle had run out of gas about a half mile down the road, and they were able to capture him and they were able to recover the paintings. But they had a hard time believing it. I mean, the police said, how could somebody be smart enough to bypass all these sophisticated alarm systems, but dumb enough not to put gas in their vehicle? And so they called the guy in and they asked him about it. And he said, "Oh, it is no mystery. I had no money to buy the gas to make the van go." Is that the worst joke you've ever heard? I think so. I think that qualifies. Let's talk about the gospel reading. So today's gospel begins, there was a dinner in Bethany. And the town of Bethany, the village of Bethany, is about 2 miles from Jerusalem. It's built on a hill. And if you walk up that hill, when you get to the top of the hill, you look right across the Kidron Valley, and the first thing you see is the Temple Mount. You know, all those pictures of the Dome of the Rock, the Golden Dome, those are all probably taken from Bethany. It's a gorgeous sight. And in that, the characters in this story are Mary, Martha, and their brother Lazarus. Now, we first meet Mary and Martha in Luke chapter 10, where Martha invites Jesus to dinner. And Jesus comes and Martha's in the kitchen and she's bustling and she's got no help and she's fretting and stewing. And finally she gets so fed up that she goes out, and Mary's out there listening to Jesus talk, right? She's out there with a man listening to Jesus. And she goes out to where her sister is, and rather than confront her sister directly, she's a little passive-aggressive, right? She says to Jesus, "Hey, tell my sister to get in the kitchen and help me with the cooking. You know, at least this food doesn't cook itself." And Jesus says, "Martha, don't fret, don't fret. You're worried unnecessarily. Mary has chosen the better part." Now, if you ever wondered whatever happened, did Martha stop, being so bustling around and Mary spend more time in the kitchen? If you read today's story, you found out Martha served. Nothing changed. It was the same. It was the same. And the next time we meet Mary and Martha, they send a message to Jesus. And they say, "The one you love is ill. Please come." And they're referring to their brother Lazarus, the one you love. So there's a close friendship there. There's a really close friendship between Mary and Martha and Jesus. And of course, when he gets the message, Jesus says, let's wait here for a couple of days. And when they finally get to Bethany, they find out that Lazarus has died. Not only that, but they laid him in the tomb about 4 days ago, right? And so there's weeping and wailing. And Jesus says, take me to the tomb. Take me to where they laid him. And so they go out to the tomb. And they stand there. And just there comes the shortest verse in the Bible. It's 2 words. Jesus wept. Jesus cried. He had tears just flowing down his face. Why is he crying? Spoiler alert, he's going to bring Lazarus back to life, okay? So why is he crying about it? What's he crying about? And I think the answer is that Jesus knows that the authorities are conspiring against him. Empire and religion are going to kill him. And he knows that he's going to be separated from his friends. And even though he knows that separation is only temporary, the great love he has for them and the great love he has for everyone causes him immeasurable grief. Causes him immeasurable grief. And so he says to them, roll back the stone. And they say, you don't want to do that. He's been in there for 4 days. The King James Version puts it very succinctly. They said, he stinketh. So they roll back the stone, and Jesus yells, Lazarus, come on out. And this poor guy comes staggering to the mouth of the tomb. He's still wrapped in all the funeral garments. The sun hits his eyes, and he's going, what the heck just happened to me? What am I doing back here? Now, this is not resurrection. This is resuscitation, okay? Resuscitation is like a round trip, right? It doesn't get you any farther. You still end up in the same old place. Resurrection, a lot better. You get a brand new place. You get a brand new place. And so now Jesus is coming back to Jerusalem. And he knows for sure that they're going to kill him this trip. This is it. I mean, it doesn't take a great prophet to figure that out, okay? And he stops in the village of Bethany. And he stops there, of course, because Mary and Martha and Lazarus live there. And he wants to spend his last few days on earth with his friends. And I think that says a lot about how much Jesus valued his friends, right? He wants to spend his last few days on earth with them. And so they have a dinner party. And the house is full of people. And right in the middle of the dinner party, Mary takes this jar of perfumed oil, pure oil of nard, $10,000 worth. By the way, did you know you can buy nard? You can buy it on Amazon. $8.80 for a third of an ounce. I ordered some. I was going to bring some today, but they delayed the delivery, and so I wouldn't get it in time. But you can buy it on, I didn't know what it smelled like. I thought I'd, bring it and pass it around and everything. But, so she takes this really expensive oil of nard. She opens the bottle. She pours it all over his feet and then starts to rub it in. And when his feet have absorbed all that they can absorb, she takes the tie out of her hair, lets down her hair, and wipes the excess off with her hair. We talk about highly inappropriate behavior. And she does this not in private, but in public, in front of everybody, like nobody's looking, right? And not only that, but everyone is well aware of it because the smell permeates the whole house. The smell permeates the whole house. And when she does this, there's a bit of unspoken dialogue. There's a bit of undercurrent. And I think it goes something like this. Jesus says to Mary, "Do you know?" And Mary answers, "Yes, Lord, I know. I know what's going to happen. And this is my final gift to you, because I know that these are the last few days that you have on earth. And I wanted to give you everything I had as my final gift to you. And Jesus says, thank God somebody understands. Thank God I'm not alone. And this beautiful moment is then spoiled by the arrival of Judas. And he doesn't confront Jesus. He confronts Mary, right? Because she's a woman. And he says to her, what are you doing? That's expensive stuff. We could have sold that and given that to the poor. And Jesus immediately turns to Judas and he says, leave her alone. And then he says, the poor you will always have with you. And if any verse in the Bible has been ripped out of context and used to justify not doing anything for the poor, it's that one. And yet, that's not what that verse means. Jesus is quoting from the book of Deuteronomy. As a matter of fact, the 15th chapter of Deuteronomy, beginning at the 11th verse. It reads like this: since there will never cease to be some in need on earth, therefore I command you, open your hand to the poor and needy neighbor in your land. And to drive home the point, John says, if you think Judas is concerned about the poor, he's not. He wanted to sell the stuff and then steal the money from the treasury, because he's the guy that holds all the money. He's the guy that holds all the money. Now, at this point, everyone's breathing a huge sigh of relief, right? I mean, now we know what this lesson is all about. It's, thank God I'm more like Mary than I am like Judas. Thank God I'm nothing like that guy Judas. But are we? Are we? What Judas does is he misrepresents the content of his heart. He misrepresents the content of his heart. And so do we. And so do we. What Mary does is she gives lavishly and sacrificially and out of love. Now, I like to think I do that, but I don't really. I think I do it a lot more than I actually do it, right? So what is this story really about? What's the point of this? Now, I stole a lot of what's to come next, so, since you're videoing this thing, I don't want to get in trouble for plagiarism. So we find Jesus in the midst of a household where there's devotion and dissent, celebration and mourning, guilt and forgiveness, blessing and curse. A place where hard questions are asked, motives are questioned, piety and poverty are topics of conversation. It is a gathering of young and old, rich and poor, those bursting with life and those barely hanging on, those with their whole life ahead of them, and those like me with the majority of their life behind them. Friends, this is us. This is the household of God right here. And we're it. We're it. Holy Week begins today at the feast in Bethany. And if we can give each other enough courage to make that arduous journey up the hill, across the Kidron Valley, and into the gates of Jerusalem, we will find it the way of blessing and peace. In just a few minutes, in this house, under this roof, we will keep the feast of love and gratitude and offer it to Jesus as a sign of our devotion. He'll take our poverty and our afflictions, our disagreements and our not so pure motives, our sin and our inability to get out from underneath the weight of death, and he will bless them. Jesus will turn us into healing oil poured out for the wounds of the world. It will be costly. It will be very costly, but Jesus will do it. Amen.